Welcome and thank you for standing by. For the duration of today's conference, all participants will be in a listen-only mode. I would like to inform all parties that today's conference is being recorded. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. I would now like to turn the conference over to the FirstNet Authority Board Chairman, Edward Horowitz. Thank you. You may begin.
Thanks, Courtney, and welcome everybody on a beautiful day here in Washington, D.C. 75 degrees, low humidity, perfect sunshine. I understand it's this way 330 days a year. It's exciting to have this board in person today as we take an important step in our mission to advance the FirstNet Authority's next step on behalf of public safety. Today is another major milestone for the FirstNet Authority. For the first time, the board will be taking action to advance the reinvestment of funds to enhance and evolve the network. We're positioned to do this because of the FirstNet Authority's unique business model that ensures the sustainability of the organization and the FirstNet network. As the business model also ensures that we, the FirstNet Authority, are directing the evolution of the network based on what public safety tells us they need from the network, both today and looking into the future. And this is something that public safety has never had before, and is yet another feature that distinguishes FirstNet from anything else in the marketplace today. Let me recap a bit. To get to today, the FirstNet Authority followed a clear and deliberate process over the course of the past year, and we've outlined our objectives every step of the way. I'd like to take a minute to recap some of those steps because with this beginning our first investment effort, we're committing ourselves to establishing a repeatable process that involves public safety and ensures the best use of our funds for investments into the network. First, our path goes back to about a year ago to August of 2018, when the first time, as part of the FY 2019 budget, the board approved a $78 million reinvestment in network enhancement funding category. In the months that followed, we built a strong investment foundation that included outlining our vision for the organization with a new strategic plan and moving forward on bringing forward the development of a roadmap that we released last month that established domains that guide our decision-making process for categories into which we will put investments. The board also formally adopted investment principles, stating that all FirstNet Authority investments must first be derived from and for the benefit of public safety, maintain and advance the network's foundation, be fiscally responsible and reflect strong financial management, and consider a balanced approach and provide value to public safety, all of which establishes the foundation for today's meeting, where the board will have the opportunity to take up the first two investment opportunities in two of the domains, coverage enhancement and network enhancements. Now, with that introduction and background, let's move to the business of the FirstNet Authority's board and combined board committee meeting. Today's agenda includes a Governance and Personnel Committee update, a combined Public Safety, Advocacy, Technology, and Finance Committee update in the investment recommendations, a closed session following the committee updates to discuss the investment recommendations, a board resolution on network enhancement and coverage enhancement investment recommendations, and to close, remarks from Ed Parkinson and Jeff Bratcher. As a start to today's meeting, I would like to ask our board secretary to please call the roll for the board and confirm that each committee has a quorum. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chairman. Edward Horowitz.
Here.
Richard Stanek.
Present via phone.
Richard Carrizo. Present. Welton Chase.
Present via phone.
Neil Cox.
Present.
Brian Crawford.
Present.
Billy Hughes.
Present.
Ron Hewitt.
Present.
Tip Osterthaler.
Present.
Paul Patrick,
Present.
Christopher Pihota, Terry Takai,
Present.
Dana Wade, David Zollette.
Here.
Thank you, Chairman. We have a quorum for both the board and all 4 committees.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. As each member of the committee has before him or her the minutes of our August meeting, are there any additions or corrections to those minutes at this time? Seeing none or hearing none, I'll take a motion that we accept these minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Ryan, second, Terry. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed indicated by saying nay. Any abstentions? The August meetings are accepted. Madam Secretary, please make the minutes available to the public following this meeting.
They will be posted on the website. Thank you.
Thank you. As Chair of the Governance and Personnel Committee, I wanted to provide a quick update on where we stand on a number of open positions. With regard to the CEO hiring process and in the board nominations process. I'll also announce the date and location of the upcoming board meeting that's going to be held in December. From the CEO hiring process, the process for selection of the next FirstNet Chief Executive Officer is actively underway and continues to be a top priority of the board, NTIA, and Department of Commerce. And we expect to have a formal announcement for the permanent CEO in the near future. Until that time, the duties and functions of the CEO will continue to be divided between Jeff Bratcher and Ed Parkinson, with Jeff in charge of the budget and executive leadership of FirstNet, and Ed overseeing the daily operations of the FirstNet Authority. And it goes without saying, Jeff and Ed, my sincerest thanks to you on behalf of the board and the FirstNet Authority for your continued leadership of the organization during this selection process. I also wanted to provide a little bit of an update on the board nominations process. We continue to work with the NTIA to finalize our candidates. We have candidates that have been recommended. They're going through a screening process, and hopefully we will have them announced shortly. I'd also like to take this moment to acknowledge and to thank the Homeland Security member designee, Admiral Ron Hewitt, for his service to the board. Ron is recently announced that he's retiring from his position as Assistant Director of Emergency Communications for DHS's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA for short. John's service to the FirstNet Authority and expertise and experience in cybersecurity, emergency communications, and homeland security is going to be missed, and we're going to make sure that as we work with Homeland to designate your replacement, that we make sure we don't lose that edge and that input on this board. And then, what can I say? I think that Admiral Hewitt has a long and dedicated service in the Coast Guard, and for that I thank him personally. As he knows, a good friend of mine was a colleague of his. Admiral Bloor was a colleague of yours, and he actually sends his regards, because I told him the other day that you were stepping down. So, as a final order of business, for Governance and Personnel Committee, I just wanted to announce the date and location for the December board meeting. December board meeting will take place on December 5th in Miami. The meetings in March, June, August, September, and December are tentative locations. Los Angeles is our target for March. June, Austin. August will be basically a budget review call and teleconference. September, back here in the Washington area, and December is to be named later. So I'm looking forward to these board sessions and excited about a continued process with public safety engagements and on the roadmap and investments for FirstNet. So if there aren't any questions, before I turn the meeting over to the committee chairs, I would like to take a moment to highlight some of the key public safety outreach that the board members have had the opportunity to participate. One of the things that occurs between board meetings is that the members of the board are called upon by the public safety community and by FirstNet Authority to go into the market and not only show the flag, but talk about what the roles and responsibilities of the board are, what the roles and responsibilities of FirstNet are, and to assure the public safety community at large that the board is active and intimately involved in the in what's going on throughout FirstNet. So there's a lot of activities. There are just 3 highlighted ones on this slide here. One I'll mention is Sheriff Stanek joined Ohio and Canton Police Department, where the agency announced it joined FirstNet. FirstNet cell site launches. General Chase joined AT&T and the public officials to announce 2 new cell sites in North Carolina. Dave Zolette joined a ribbon cutting in Maryland. And I think, was Diane with you, David? Was Diane Ronaldo with you?
Yes, she was.
Yeah, so she also participates, and that's also an extraordinary dedication on NTIA's part to have the administrator join us at an opening event. And Paul Patrick supported the first tribal land cell site launch in Red Cliff Reservation in Wisconsin. And thank you, Paul. And I think also you've been up to Alaska recently for the tribal meeting?
Yes, we had a great tribal working group meeting in Anchorage, Alaska last week.
And then, of course, we got Brian Crawford and Mayor Hughes, Billy Hughes. I'm looking at Ron Hewitt, I'm looking at Brian, and then it's Brian Hughes. So Brian Crawford and Mayor Hughes joined DHS's Science and Technology Shake and Fury Operations exercise in Birmingham. So that's pretty amazing. And then we have Carrizo, who is everywhere all the time for working with the IAFC's conference this summer. Stanek joined us at APCO. We had a terrific turnout there. Paul Patrick, I just said a second ago, came back from Tribal Working Group meeting in Alaska. Terry Takai, Neil Cox, and Tip supported us at PSCR Stakeholders meeting in Chicago. It is Neil's hometown, so he showed us some of the nooks and crannies where to go in Chicago, and we had a very welcome reception by you, Neil, and also we were quite actively engaged with PACR, where FirstNet had its own track in a multi-day meeting that PACR held, in which FirstNet members, FirstNet users, and AT&T participated on panels, and we talked about experiences, positive experiences, and areas that could be improved experiences. What was interesting for me, whenever I sat into those panels, was that the fact that no one complained that they couldn't get the service. Usually they say, I can't get the service. That's what you hear most often. That was not a complaint. People said, I get the service, I want to learn how to use the apps more robustly. I'd like to know how to rack and stack for various incidents, and it was really a positive accomplishment, and you know, the team, both at FirstNet as well as AT&T, deserves kudos for that, and having board members participate in that makes sure that everybody is standing up straight in that attention. So at this point, let me open up some comments to anybody else who would like to talk about their experiences at these events.
Chairman Horowitz, let me make a little comment about the PSCR in Chicago. It was a very, very impressive event, because once you see the challenges that were put out by PCSR, and you saw academia and you saw startup companies doing the demos of both hardware and software, it was very impressive. And you could see and that's what public safety needs, is they need bright minds with diverse backgrounds to bring these applications, both software and hardware, for public safety. And it was a very exciting event, and you learn every time I go to one of those events. I learned so much, and I think they learned from us also. So you saw the interaction between public safety that would look at an application, an app, or a new technology or service, and then the collaboration back and forth between the representative from public safety and the entrepreneur, whether it was from academia or from a startup, listening to each other and sharing thoughts and comments. So those sessions are really good. You learn a lot, especially when we had some of the outside speakers come in and talk to the group. One of the things that I took back from that conference was where the gentleman from Chicago Police Department said, we don't want to keep two systems. You know, it's becoming burdensome to have two different systems. We'd like to see it all wrapped into one. And I think as we move forward with mission critical push to talk, you will see those evolutions occur over time. But it was a great event, and I think PCSR deserves a lot of credit for putting that on.
Thanks, Neil. And Derek Orr is the executive from NIST that oversees PSCR. Brian.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment real quickly with Mayor Hughes and my trip down to Birmingham, Alabama to assist and kind of look at the DHS operations there for the next generation of first responders program that they have. And, you know, the big takeaways there are the Secretary of State was there. You had the Birmingham mayor that was there that was addressing things. And, of course, you had the first responders. And so you had the integration of all of government agencies from the federal level to down to the local level that knew the importance of integrating commercial-grade technology into the emergency theater. And so this was an OpEx experiment. It wasn't a routine drill. And so they were expecting mistakes, but I saw none while I was there, Mayor. You may want to comment on that, but the advanced technologies that they had there in detecting hazardous materials that are on the scenes, the tethered drones that they use, and of course we had a FirstNet SATCOLT there that was bolstering their interoperability as well. And so situational awareness, better protecting our first responders, those are all things that are mission critical to the objectives of FirstNet and that are all available in our roadmap. And so it was good to see the roadmap come out about the same time and to see those principles that have been put so appropriately in the roadmap reflected in that drill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Brian.
Can't top that.
Mayor. Billy Hughes drops the mic. Got it. Thanks, Mayor. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, excuse me.
Rich.
I'd just like to talk about Fire Rescue International with the International Association of Fire Chiefs. That was held August 5th through the 10th. Director Crawford came down and talked to the board of directors. I met with the executive committee during that time. A team from FirstNet came down, 11 members, and then we used 2 members also still out of headquarters during that time period to make sure all our comms went out. 58 sessions were attended that dealt with FirstNet by the team, and we hosted 35 FirstNet did sessions for the participants. There's about 10,000, a little over 10,000 participants that are the upper management of the fire chiefs and the fire service of not just the United States, but internationally. 20 leaders were identified while we were there to continue on with the joint fire and PD summit that's coming up in October. So it was a well worth event. Brian attended with some of the team members a one-day, the tech committee. We have an actual technology committee out of IFC, and they held a whole day seminar, and FirstNet participated in that and then did a semi-roadmap on 3 of the events afterwards.
Thanks, Rich. That's, I mean, we don't think about it when we're getting together and preparing for these board meetings because it's such a governance-oriented session, but really the work that goes on, obviously by the FirstNet members and the FirstNet board is really, I think, the result of board members prepared to say, look, we're willing to go and travel and participate if you want to have us, and then FirstNet management saying, we want to have you, please come. And it's, I think, one of the strengths that comes from this, from the way the board is comprised, the members on the board, and willingness to serve. So.
And I can't thank the team, the 11 members that were there. They were just phenomenal and really participated heavily, and they drove the FirstNet more than Brian and I, if anybody.
Terrific. Two fire
Chair?
guys in one time. Yes, Paul.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead if you're not finished.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add just a quick comment about the tribal working group last week in Alaska. Todd Early was there, who's the chairman of the Public Safety Advisory Committee. And also, we followed up with a one-day roadmap meeting afterwards in Alaska as well. So we maximized the utilization of the FirstNet representatives that were there to do that. It was just a very positive meeting. They have been always very positive in the past, but this one kind of took one step in a direction that was very positive towards FirstNet, and we're making some great progress with our tribal members, and I think it was worth the board realizing that as a working group, the tribal working group is very appreciative of what FirstNet is doing for them on their tribes and the direction that we're going. So I think that's a positive take from that meeting that the board should be aware of.
Terrific. Dave.
Mr. Chairman, I attended the cell site launch in Tillman Island, and the key was, of course, linking rural America to the infrastructure. But I have to admit, I was struck by the fact that when you have the individuals there from both federal, state, local leaders, public safety officials, our partners at AT&T coming together, you can really see the power of that organization, that team, and it was pretty compelling. So I just wanted to share that with the group.
Thank you. Excellent. Well, I think we can go on for longer, but I think we also would like to have deal with the business at hand for this board meeting. Thanks for sharing your experiences, and I know that in the weeks and months ahead, there's going to be a similar number of events in different parts of the country, and I think that there will be some test of weather. That is, we will make sure that there are trips up north in the wintertime and the deepest part of the winters for board members to make sure that they understand that we have to exist everywhere. Also, I want to mention that in today's session, we are combining the committee presentations from the Finance Committee and Technology and Public Service Advocacy Committees. We're going to combine their reports together and not have separate meetings per se. And the reason for that is that these committees needed to get together on behalf and examine the various investments that are being proposed and will be voted upon today. But I'm going to ask that the committee chairs provide a summary of their activities in their committees, and I know Rich Stanek is on the phone, but we're going to ask Dave Buchanan to step in on his behalf to report on the PSA committee. But before you do so, Karen has a statement she wants to read that we should have read at the beginning of the meeting.
Thank you, Chairman. We just have a conflicts of interest statement that I'd like to read, particularly as we move forward into the next discussion on our investment recommendation. So to that end, prior to participating in the FirstNet Authority Board and Combined Committee meeting today, all of the board members have reviewed the agenda as well as the conflict of interest guidance provided by the Ethics Law and Program Division of the Department of Commerce Office of the General Counsel regarding the conflict of interest standards that apply to board members. All board members have responded prior to today's meeting that they do not have a conflict and will not need to recuse themselves from participation in any portion of the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Could you
Sure.
please stand in for Sheriff Stanek?
Sure. Thanks, Chairman Horowitz. I'm happy to report that the Public Safety Advocacy Team has had a busy year leading our extensive outreach program to public safety. And the purpose for this program is to hear and understand public safety's experiences with the network, both the positive and the negative, and to capture their needs and identify their opportunities and operational needs and priorities for the network. To do this, our team collaborated with public safety stakeholders, including the Public Safety Advisory Committee led by Todd Early, and through more than 800 engagements across the nation, we use these meetings and engagements and opportunities to inform the roadmap. The feedback on public safety's operational needs led to the identification of roadmap priorities and ultimately the two investment areas that you mentioned earlier, Mr. Chairman. In terms of In terms of those domains, the most discussed area during our outreach program this year was coverage and capacity. More than 75% of the 800-plus engagements addressed coverage and capacity as an opportunity and operational need for public safety. And we received a lot of positive feedback on the FirstNet Deployables program as we conducted these meetings. And we can continue to hear about the need for expanded coverage. As we look ahead to 2020, we will continue our work with public safety stakeholders to ensure that their voice is the most important voice and that their voice will be heard in the investment process and in the roadmap process for 2020 and beyond. Chairman Cox, would you want to add anything from your perspective on the Technology Committee?
So, before you do that, Neil, let me just also acknowledge Todd Early, who is chair of the Executive Committee of the PSAC, is with us today, and I want to thank him for his service and that of all of the PSAC members and the Executive Committee meeting who meet on a regular basis. And I appreciate your being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. As chair of the Technology Committee, I'm really proud of our accomplishments over the past few months. As we know, we participated in the roadmap and the domains associated with the roadmap, and then primarily the subcategories under those domains to make sure that our responsibility under the statute is to keep this network on leading edge for our first responders. I'm very proud of our contributions that we made towards the investment process. They were very logical and determined these two items that will help first responders in the future. So I'm very proud of what we accomplished. And so as chair of the Technology Committee, we had a good year. We've had a great quarter. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tip from the head of the Finance Committee.
Thanks, Neil. I'm happy to close out the discussions by the committee chairs here as we get into the details of the investments. And first, I'd like to pay compliments to Kim and her finance team for the contributions they made to get us to this point. Part of the financial analysis of the investment recommendations being discussed today rely on information that's drawn from the contract we have with AT&T, but also from research that's been done by the finance team as well as others in the organization, and we relied heavily on what that research revealed. We also rely, when we get into the procurement process, on independent government cost estimates, which are largely developed by the finance team. That's a pretty rigorous process. It's very time-consuming, and I appreciate the work that went into the development of these cost estimates for both of the investment recommendations. The finance team also played an integral part in the development of the business cases. And as you all recall, rather than just go through our normal sort of development of independent government cost estimates and development of technical requirements as the procurement process generally unfolds, we also go through a process which is more of a commercial business case development process for investments. It's one of the unique aspects of FirstNet that we do have a lot of sort of private sector practices and processes that we try to bring in. That's partly why we have a board consisting of a lot of outside members. Integrating the findings of something like a commercial business case with the normal government procurement process is not a straightforward or simple or everyday process. And so I appreciate the effort that went into that on the part of everyone, not just the finance team. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Ed and Jeremy and Jeff to get into the details of the investment recommendations.
Thank you, Tip, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I just want to thank the combined efforts of FirstNet, the organization, the board, public safety, without whom we wouldn't be here, and also all the input that they've been able to provide, as you've heard from Dave and the PSA committee. The work that Dave and the Public Safety Advocacy Group have conducted over the last 6 months really has been nothing short of outstanding. And the input of public safety is fundamental to the success of the network. This is, after all, public safety's network. It is for whom we work every day. And it's so important that the fabric of public safety is felt at every stage and at every aspect of what we try and achieve at the FirstNet Authority. The way that we tried to structure the process through which the authority would move our investments is laid out here on the slide before you. The stakeholder engagement is fundamental. As I mentioned before, and as Dave just highlighted, just the hundreds of events that we've been able to hold with public safety over the last 6 to 10 months has really allowed us to become the best educated organization when it comes to the needs of public safety anywhere in the nation. And we're very proud of the relationship that we have with public safety and obviously the role that public safety is going to have moving forward in perpetuity with the continued improvements of their system. In parallel, we have to work with industry. We have to be that fast follower to ensuring that we remain updated to the latest trends and drivers that appear in the broadband environment and in telecommunications today. We have to make sure that the FirstNet system is cutting edge and provides the absolute best service possible, both in terms of the user experience and almost more importantly, customer service. We pride ourselves in the fact that we are available 24/7 to public safety and are working with their best intentions in everything we do. And third of all is the partnership we have with AT&T. They stepped up a couple of years ago now to put their brand on the line, to put their commitment towards public safety. And so it's important for our role in overseeing the contract and ensuring that AT&T delivers as per the contract, while at the same time making sure that the information that public safety needs and the information that is provided forward to AT&T is integrated into the work that we do. All of those three buckets move us forward into the roadmap, which we released about a month ago, and we've already had thousands of downloads on our firstnet.gov website. And for those of you who are listening, if you haven't already, do please go to the firstnet.gov website and download the roadmap. This is consistent feedback, not only pushing information out, but more importantly, receiving information in from the field is so important so that as the network evolves, as our products that we push out and the information we receive in also evolves with the changing threats to public safety and the way that they run towards danger, and understanding that we can provide those solutions to them. The 6 domains that you see there in front, which Dave and Neil referenced earlier on, provide the building blocks of our investment strategy. And ultimately, it's that investment and the way that we go about the process of developing our investment is key. And so ensuring that we follow the legislation that Congress passed a number of years ago, we adhere to the guiding principles that our board passed 2 board meetings ago and really aligns to the roadmap that we've established. Will make these investments successful and will ensure the future success of FirstNet. And so this 1, 2, 3 step process is so important and we'll continue to build upon this in the years to come. Next slide. What we've done is really focused on 2 core investments. And I'm going to pass it over now to Jeremy Zollo to really kickstart the first one. But before he does, I also just want to thank all of FirstNet, the FirstNet Authority, the board, staff, even contract support who've played a huge role in getting us to this point. This is a monumental aspect of our fiduciary responsibility, our statutory responsibility, and this is really the kickstart to where we need to move forward in terms of making this not only the best public safety network in the country, but frankly around the world. So with that, Jeremy.
Thanks, Ed. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, it's a pleasure to present to you the overview of the first business case that FirstNet put together around the deployable assets. The deployable service that's offered today by AT&T and was delivered through Task Order 4, where we initially had 72 dedicated deployable assets around the country. It really represents a first of its kind offering to public safety, where subscribers and subscribing agencies can request these services for free to help with capacity issues at planned events, to provide coverage in areas that currently do not have coverage, and respond to catastrophic events that public safety communications are so vital for the success of their missions. Everything in this service that's offered is for free, and we have seen an increase in the use of these assets over the last year and a half in particular that has demonstrated the value to public safety and our continued commitment to listen to public safety's needs and push it forward. As Ed had said, the roadmap and public safety's feedback always starts with and always will start with how do we choose to make our investments. If you look in the middle here, the roadmap priorities have three main priorities. One, to increase outdoor and indoor coverage, and that is continuing to happen today through the 5-year build-out of the state plans, where infrastructure is being deployed today and will continue to grow as we've committed through the contract with AT&T. We also want to look into policies and codes and standards that help facilitate in-building coverage. So the roadmap team is continuing to work on these important and vital priorities, but we're also looking into a need to grow and enhance this deployable fleet based on the feedback and the data that we've looked at over the last year and a half in particular. Everything that we've done has been data-driven, inclusive of market research, and really represents a cross-organizational process that we put together that has been thoughtful, intense, and purposeful to make sure that we make the right investments for public safety. What we've seen over the last year and a half in particular is a demonstrated success and use of these assets in the service that AT&T provides through their response operations group. Today, we've seen an increased demand of 3 times the amount of requests of public safety over the last quarter from when this started about a year ago. We anticipate that public safety will continue, and the numbers are trending even higher this quarter, that as they become more aware of this free service, as more incidents challenge our public safety stakeholders, and as they continue to adopt the FirstNet network as their service of choice, we're only going to see more demand and more increase in that demand for events of a catastrophic nature, a non-catastrophic nature, or pre-planned events. As an example of what we had looked into was Hurricane Michael's and Florence. And here what we're just trying to demonstrate is the service is working. As the hurricanes moved up the coast, we saw deployables shift from areas of Regions 1, Regions 3, and Regions 4 in the country, and all combine on one area, not just to help with the initial response and make sure that public safety had the communications they needed during these events, but it also stayed well into the recovery phase and efforts. We're seeing some of these deployables stay out there for 60 days plus. Public safety values them, public safety needs them, and then they see the value in them, and they don't want to let them go. And that's why we've put this service in place. They shouldn't have to. So looking into this, we've put a business case together for the board that represents a responsible way at looking at how do we take advantage of public safety's continued requests. How do we make sure we put deployables and work through our contract with AT&T to make sure they're placed in the right areas of the country? And then how do we continue to expand the services? Today, most of those services are provided by Cell on Wheels or SatColts, but we're also looking into various platforms that can help enhance this experience for public safety. So are there aerial solutions to these platforms? Are there amphibious solutions that we could look into around waterways where we need better coverage and better capacity? So the business case represents the thoughtfulness of all these things, and it ensures that we continue to build upon public safety's needs and make sure that public safety has access to the network when and where they need it.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman Horowitz. Thank you, Ed. Thanks, Jeremy. So I'm pleased today to be discussing the business case related to network enhancement. One thing I'd like to start with, we're also very pleased with the current status of the network. The most recent public figures have over 9,000 public safety agencies now subscribed to FirstNet, and over quickly approaching 1 million devices on this network for public safety. And I reflect back on, this has been a 20-plus year roadmap for public safety to get to a dedicated network. And as part of the legislation that was passed in 2012, public safety advocated strongly. They wanted their own dedicated network. And that's what we took seriously in implementing and are now continuing to implement with AT&T. There's over 90 now FirstNet-ready devices as well that include our spectrum, the Band 14 spectrum that was licensed to the authority on a nationwide basis to use as part of this procurement and the network that we're now rolling out. What actually provides public safety with their dedicated network, and when it says FirstNet on their devices, that's how they know they're on their dedicated network. And that's a critical element of our core network. So there's two main components outlined in the legislation. There's the core network and the radio access network. So the brains and all the cell sites that connect to the brain, and obviously the devices that link to the cell sites. The current network allows public safety what they've been asking for, and that's the priority and preemption for their data traffic. They want their data secure for all the activities they do in saving lives and responding to incidents, and they wanted controlled access and coverage where they operate. Again, we are continuing to drive that now with the build-out and addition of Band 14 spectrum on top of the existing LTE bands that AT&T is making available with priority and preemption capabilities, leveraging the dedicated FirstNet network and the enhanced user experiences. So the other part of the legislation also in Section 6206, under the powers and duties for the authority, tasks us to ensure the maintenance, operation, and improvement of this network. And public safety was very vocal. They do not want to be stranded on outdated technology as wireless technology matures. They have seen that happen in other areas of their communications and response, and they ensured that was in the legislation. So it drives us to take into account new and evolving technologies as well. And that's where we're at today in the business case that we've outlined, adding and getting ready for the 5G capabilities that we know the wireless industry is now pushing aggressively on across the world, not just in the United States. So we have developed a business case and work in market research over the last 9 to 12 months with vendors, the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona, our engagement with public safety. And they've told us in that public safety feedback, they expect the FirstNet network in the core to remain current with continued evolution of features and functions as specified in the standards and available by the technology providers. Again, they don't want to be left behind. They want to be fast followers. They don't want to be on the bleeding edge. They want to be right behind, riding that wave as the technology matures. That's reflected in our roadmap priorities as well, and to investigate and evolve the core network and take advantage of these emerging technologies. So 5G, the 5th generation. So the investment opportunity in the business case that we presented to the board and that you've reviewed is focused solely on that activity and how we can start the preparations now on the FirstNet core network to take advantage of the future capabilities that we know will be coming in the next 5 to 10 years with the 5G enhancements. Quick recap of the generations of wireless technology. 80s started with analog voice, 1G. Those were the first cellular networks. Chairman Cox, our technology chairman, was there for one of the first calls, if I remember correctly. And we thank you. You started. Look what you've started. So we're happy to have you as part of this and now focusing and advocating for public safety as well. 1990 saw the introduction of digital voice as they were switching from analog to digital voice and some simple data activities in there. And that's actually where I started my career, deploying digital networks worldwide. 2000 saw us transition to more mobile data, more use of mobile data. The trigger of certain phones that we all carry triggered a lot of use of mobile data and the expansion of that capability for a wireless device. 2010's long-term evolution. And that was a decision public safety actually made. They wanted to have this broadband network focused on the recent LTE long-term evolution capabilities. And that's what we're delivering today with our partnership with AT&T on developing those broadband capabilities for public safety. And now we're moving into the next generation, the 5th G, 5G. this enhanced mobile broadband, the 5G new radio standards have been developed. We have dedicated teams, as outlined in the legislation as well, that work for the FirstNet Authority that are in these standards meetings every week. These happen on calls, in-person meetings. There's a plenary meeting, I believe, in California this week. We are involved in driving those public safety mission-critical needs into the next generation of technology as well. The team has done a fantastic job, and we have broad worldwide support in developing those standards to address not only the United States public safety needs, but also the worldwide public safety needs for these mobile networks that are becoming ubiquitous and used everywhere. So with that, we're very happy in the work we've done. I want to thank all the team that have spent countless hours working on this across the entire organization, the fantastic feedback from the board members on how to make this successful and moving forward, and look forward to the commitment later in the meeting. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, Ed and Jeremy. At this point, I'm going to ask for a motion from the board to move the board into a closed session for the next 15 to 30 minutes or so.
So moved.
Neil, thank you very much. Second. Rich Quizzo saying thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, so it's about 10 minutes to 12, so somewhere between 5 after 12 and 12:15 we'll be back and open up the meeting. So I'm going to ask people who are participating from the public online to keep their phones open, but it won't be less than 15 minutes and won't be more than 30 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, line is now open.
Thank you, Operator. We just would like to confirm that our board members are back on the phone. With that, Sheriff Stanek?
I'm here, sir.
Okay. General Chase?
Mr. Chairman, welcome here.
Okay. And Dana Wade?
Yes, I am here.
Thank you. All right, thank you. So before we move on the vote for Resolution 102, I wanted to provide a brief report out of the board's closed session. During the session, the board discussed privileged and commercial financial information, including procurement-sensitive information regarding the investment recommendations, and the board also gave direction with respect to the next steps that the FirstNet Authority Management is authorized to take with the investment recommendations. So the board is now prepared to vote on Resolution 102, Network Enhancement and Coverage Enhancement Investment Recommendations. This resolution authorizes FirstNet Authority Management to proceed with the recommended investments. Before we vote, are there any final questions or comments from the board? Thank you. Now we are prepared to vote on Board Resolution 102, Network Enhancements and Coverage Enhancements Investment Recommendations. Madam Secretary, would you please read the operative language?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We, of course, will post this resolution online once it has been passed, and you will be able to read it in its entirety, but the operative language for purposes of the vote today. Whereas during the September 18th, 2019 Combined Committee and Board meeting, the FirstNet Authority Management Team briefed the Board on the material terms of the above referenced investment recommendations. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board authorizes the FirstNet Authority Management to move forward with the coverage enhancement and network enhancement investment recommendations, and directs the FirstNet Authority Management to take all actions necessary to implement the proposals in accordance with the objectives and business cases as presented to the Board. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board approves the above referenced investment recommendations and associated implementation actions by the FirstNet Authority Management in accordance with the objectives and business cases as presented to the Board.
Thank you, Karen. We're now prepared to take the vote on Board Resolution 102, Network Enhancement and Coverage Enhancement Investment Recommendations. So with that, can I please have a motion?
Motion made.
Rich Carrizo.
Mr. Chairman, Sheriff Stanek seconds that motion.
All right, I also heard, I don't know how we can we have two seconds? Can Paul Patrick and
Paul
Stanek
Patrick,
both
yeah.
be
Okay.
seconds along with Richard's first?
Of course.
I'd like to recognize
Second as well.
each of their support on this. With that, let me put the motion up for approval by the board. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Are there any opposed? Say nay. Any abstentions? All right, with that, Madam Secretary, will you please make the following resolution available to the public following this meeting? And thank you very much, Ed, Jeff, Jeremy, and the entire team for all this work that you've done in getting to this point. This is indeed a milestone, and every time we get together as a board, there's yet another milestone that is achieved, and it's quite extraordinary. So let me turn the table over to you, Ed and Jeff, to outline the next steps and provide closing remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the board's vote to allow management to move forward to initiate the procurement process as per federal acquisition regulations. We understand the responsibility from a management perspective and frankly the trust that the board has placed on us to ensure that we adhere to not only the rules and regulations of what we need to do from a procurement process, but also the spirit of sharing as much information with our federal partners inside the Department of Commerce and as much as we possibly can with our end users. We have to follow the letter of the law and the procurement process in great detail. And it's certainly under that spirit that Jeff, myself, and all of management intend to go down this process. We absolutely intend to share with the board at multiple stages on this process to make sure that you all are kept up to date with the latest information that the procurement team allows us to share. Just from my side, it's been a long time coming to this point. I was lucky enough to be one of the first staffers to join the FirstNet Authority a few years ago, and to sit here today alongside the board and Jeff and Jeremy and the rest of management to be present when we kickstart our reinvestment program is a tremendous honor. That's what it really is. To be here on behalf of public safety, to work for public safety, has been an incredible journey. And I'd certainly like to thank all of you for the opportunity to be part of this process. And I certainly like to also say I look forward to working with the folks inside the Department of Commerce to ensure that this is done, our investment process is conducted in the most appropriate and detailed and if I say the cleanest way possible. Yep, it's so important that this is done in the appropriate manner. And so I look forward to the steps in the future. And with that, Jeff.
Sure, thank you, Ed. Thank you, board members. Thank you, Chairman Horowitz. I'll echo what Ed Parkinson said. Thank you for the trust you're placing in the authority and the staff to execute on these two investments. As technology, and I shared earlier, technology evolves, FirstNet's evolving as well. We're now taking those next steps, investing back into the network, not only per the law, but also per the guidance and the efforts public safety spent in getting dedicated spectrum and funding to build a network. I think I speak for every staff member that works here at the FirstNet Authority. We are extremely honored to be able to serve public safety in this manner and bring them the network and the tools and the communication capabilities that they've long strived for. And we're very honored to be a part of that. But again, this is public safety's network. We're driving their inputs into everything we're doing. And again, are honored to sit here with the board members and also do that for public safety going forward. So thank you again.
Thanks, Jeff. And Ed, if there are no other questions or closing comments, I believe that we are ready to adjourn. Is there anybody who would like to say something? Okay, thank you. So we're now prepared to adjourn this meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion.
All right, Terry Takai, second.
Second.
Brian Crawford. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions? None. The meeting is adjourned. Thanks to everybody for participating, and look forward to the next session. Meeting adjourned.